our guest from Germany today. He is none other than Nick Ponter. He was born in England, and his interesting and varied career started with an apprenticeship as a carpenter. Oh, wow. And 22 years of army, including 6 years of foreign services in Bangladesh and India, and Pakistan, sorry. He was around our Indian subcontinent, and he just told me that he was at Vaga border many times from the other side. So today he is an experienced business English trainer offering tailor-made courses and support to a wide range of businesses in Germany and abroad. Nick is also a published author and conducts worldwide online readings, as well as offering storytelling and creative writing workshops. So welcome, Nick, on this platform of Brainciti, and let's hear from you what business English is all about.
Excellent. Rajiv, thank you very much for the lovely and warm welcome. I hope everybody can hear me okay, that my
yes,
audio connection is fine. As you said, I'm originally from England, actually from Windsor, near London, where the royal family live. If you've seen Windsor Castle, they were the noisy neighbours, I have to say. And then as you heard, I've travelled all over the world, worked in Bangladesh and Pakistan for 6 years. I've been to Mumbai for 1 week, but India is definitely top of my list for another place to visit. Those of you from Dubai, I've been there many times when I travelled through and stopped for a few days. I now live in Germany and have been here since 2003. And we run a business English school. So what's it all about? What is business English? Who do we teach it to? Or train it to, actually? I have a company called PS Sprachenservice, and Sprachen in German is like language. And we offer services basically to the corporate environment. So I'm also an author. I'm the author of Connor Jackson and the Memory Thieves. I've done lots of online readings, and I was in India on Monday doing a reading to a university, and I'm back in India again on Sunday doing a workshop. So lots of online visits at the moment. So I'm going to get going with business English. What am I going to talk about? Those of you who are in the corporate environment, because that is the subject I'm talking about today, is how can your company benefit from English training? I mean, why would you need it? But first, I have to say that it has to be an added value to your company. You have better trained staff, career development for the people, and retention. We shouldn't forget about all of these things today. They're all extremely important and interlocking. So who in a company would we train? Well, you got to remember that I live in Germany and English is not the first language. Unlike, I would say, probably in India and Dubai, where most of you are from today, English is pretty much the first language in business. So in Germany and most of Central Europe, English is not the first language. So we're talking in our business about second language learners, basically. We have everybody from office staff doing accounts and sales and marketing, purchasing, to technicians who design products, to service technicians who travel around the world to repair machines and devices, management level who give presentations and enter into negotiations, trainees, apprentices, the young talents, also very important. And when they come out of school, they need first a really good immersion into company language in English. Talent management schemes, the young people who've been identified as the managers for the future, they're also part of the groups we train. And university students, although that's not the corporate environment, but it's an area I teach in as well. The type of companies we teach in, logistics, freight forwarding, warehousing, production, manufacturing companies, for example, sewage pumps was my main subject today, IT, helicopters, you name it, wherever there's a need, then that is where we jump in to help the people. Also, I shouldn't forget, I teach at the local university, Business English, and at the University of Applied Science, where I do technical English. When I'm in the companies, though, I actually don't like to call myself an English teacher. I'm a trainer. I'm a supporter. I'm a coach. I help people to do their jobs. So it's coming away from the classical schoolroom environment. So there's a broad range of people. Who do these people speak to? Well, let's imagine you work in the research and development department of a manufacturing company. The company I was with today actually have an office in Delhi, and they talk daily to Delhi. They email Delhi, they have video conferences. And because in Germany, they're second language learners, they need the vocabulary of their company, they need the self-confidence, and they need to articulate themselves at the level appropriate to their job. You could have the accounts department, which works with other offices in Romania, is another example. The list is endless. It's not always that the people we teach speak to native speakers in other countries. Yes, that happens. But I would say the majority of communication is second language learner to second language learner. For example, from Germany to France, where English today is the language most people would have to communicate in. So those are the areas we teach in, train in, and the type of people. What do we train? Products in a company, the services in a company, so the vocabulary. Self-confidence, that really is one of the main areas, because a lot of people are scared of speaking another language. Even if they're actually quite good in it, they have fear. And one of our main jobs is to people to overcome this fear. Work-related vocabulary, because as I said at the beginning, it has to be an added value for the company. So the first thing they need is their vocabulary and their products. Depending on people's jobs, they have to give presentations as well. And so although we don't do standard how to give a presentation, it's more of the English required for the presentation, so they can stand up in front of people and clearly articulate themselves and pass their message across. And maybe skills like negotiating, for example. The list is actually endless. Each company is different, and each company has different requirements. So let's say you're a company. What do you expect from language training outside of a school or university or college environment? I don't want to be unfair at this stage to universities, schools, or colleges, but a lot of the training at this level is rather at a linguistic level, where the grammar is taught in minute detail, like technology would be. And that's fine, because at the end of the day, it's general English, and these people are academics. I mean, that's absolutely fine. But when you're in a company, that's not really the focus of what people need. Education in school, especially language, is often measured. It has to be measured. People have to be given grades. But can you really measure language? Difficult, because language is pretty much, it's a soft skill, very much. And the people communicate in different ways. One of the ways people in schools or education services would measure it is often using grammar, vocab tests, maybe presentations and essays. And that's fine. But when you leave this formal educational environment and you start your career in a company, you will find that the world of English is actually completely different. Outside school, people should use the skills which they've actually learned and put them into practice. And of course, if you've studied Shakespeare, for example, it's not going to be particularly useful if you work in the R&D department. Although education, of course, there's nothing wrong with that. So it's a completely different skill set of what we're actually looking for and where we're focusing on. Our main focus is practical and soft skills. So people really need to be able to pick up a product and describe it and talk about the features and sell and talk about the advantages and disadvantages. There should be a direct benefit for the company. That's 100% what should be there. If the company is paying for training, they need to get something out of it immediately. Staff should be trained on the products and services. And remember, the companies are paying to increase their value. And us trainers going into companies are part of that process. How do we do it if we are not following textbooks like in university and measuring vocabulary and measuring grammar? Well, the first thing we do when we find out that a company is interested in English training is we visit them and we do a thorough needs analysis. We find out from the management, what do you want to achieve? What are the weaknesses in the company? With whom do you communicate? Which branch is there? What different departments are there? Which countries do they communicate with? Which workers should be trained? What level are they? And these are all different factors which have to come in together to formulate a concept. Once we formulated a concept and presented it to the company in an offer, and let's say they take up our offer, we would then go to the next stage, is creating course plans with course material and the best trainer for the task. And then, for example, we started today with a new company in our local area. And that's a company producing high quality curtains, carpets and fabrics, actually delivered to Dubai or supplied to Dubai very often and other countries in the region. So you can see there's a complete broad area of what people need. And this particular department has specific needs of what they want. So it's not us going into the company telling them what they should do. It's actually the other way around. They should tell us what they need, and we should put that into practice. Of course, there's nothing wrong with small talk to start lessons and things like that. Of course, that goes without saying. But there really, as I can't really say it anymore, there really should be a focus on the real needs of the company and what they want to achieve. Part of our training is classic storytelling, which is actually quite cool. It's something I love, as I'm a Norther myself. Why is storytelling good in businesses? Well, it's actually brilliant because it allows participants in English courses to express themselves and describe what they do at work. It builds their confidence if you can create an environment where people are allowed to speak freely and they want to speak freely, and they start telling stories about their work, what happened with a particular order, what happened with a complaint, and tell the story from the beginning all the way to the end. It practices vocab and specific work situations. It's realistic. You can't get more realistic than talking about your job and engaging it. And it's much better than using unrealistic book scenarios and getting people to play characters who they're not. In my experience, in the corporate environment, people get bored of that rather quickly. Typical thing would be in a lesson. Tomorrow morning, actually, I'm going to a logistics company, and I will, first thing I do every week, tell me about your last week at work. Some people might say, Nick, I tell you every week, say the same thing. I do orders, I do this. Yes, tell me about a specific order. Did you have any problems over the last week? So the job of the trainer is to get them to get the answers out of the people. People very often will give you short answers, maybe because they don't know the vocabulary, maybe because they haven't got the confidence. So we need to get this out of the people by creating the correct environment. It's always good to get them to describe one particular job in detail. For example, logistics company tomorrow, they have a shipment from the consignor to the consignee. Maybe it goes from Germany to Saudi Arabia via Dubai, who knows? And the participant should be given the opportunity to make notes for a few minutes and then explain to the rest of the group exactly what happens from A to Z with the shipment. They're practicing their vocab, they're practicing their processes, and they're practicing talking to people confidently about their job. The job of the trainer in all of this is a little bit like a conductor of an orchestra. We're there to improve them as they go along. We're there to offer them better words. If they've made a mistake which leads to a misunderstanding, correct them. And basically to prompt them, maybe by asking questions to make sure the conversation is a full in-depth conversation. So that's pretty much where storytelling comes into our job and an extremely important element of the job. Participants like it, although they might groan when they're the ones who are in the spotlight, but they actually like it when they have finished because they feel, oh, I've actually learned something from my job, and I've got more confidence, and the vocabulary comes quicker to me. So it's a win-win situation for everybody. And now, of course, one of the questions people ask is, does my grammar have to be correct? Ooh, difficult question. Remember, everybody, we're talking here about second language learners. We're not talking about university education, and we're not talking about native speakers who also make mistakes in language. We all make mistakes. It's fine. Grammar is not unimportant, but in my experience, most people, as soon as you say, hey, today we're going to do the past simple, they initially get a feeling of their school days from 20 years ago and want to run out of the room. So it has to be packaged and sold in a different way. So what I do is I don't teach grammar. Oh, Paddy, I see you like that comment. I'm glad you agree with me. Grammar can be taught frontally like that. Of course, that's possible, but maybe better, depending on the level of the group, is somebody makes a mistake. At an appropriate time in the lesson, you could say, hey, you said something, it was understandable, but maybe it's better doing it like this. If somebody then asks for a more detailed description of what's the difference between I am working and I'm working, then you can give it. But it doesn't necessarily have to be done in a frontal way. Of course, trainers are people's people, so you have to read your group and try to get a feeling from them. Okay, so that's one of the things. So grammar is not unimportant, but it shouldn't be done as the main focus of the lesson. Practical skills is much more important. If you've got people in the R&D department, get them to bring their technical drawings into the lesson. Get them to bring their products into the lessons, the samples, pictures of damages, things like that. You can't get any better material than that. There is no textbook for it, and this is real interpersonal communication. And this is the main part of being a trainer in a company. Is it okay to make mistakes? Hey, yeah, I made a mistake the other day when I was speaking English. I think I said, there's some people over there, not there are, because in English, when you're like a native speaker, you shorten things to theirs. It's not grammatically correct. I try not to do it in a lesson, of course. But if people make a grammatical mistake, it's not the end of the world. If I said to somebody, I go to the meeting yesterday, of course, that's grammatically incorrect, but there's no misunderstanding. So we're not training people to be native speakers. People in Germany, where I predominantly work, are second language speakers. And they're actually happy when they can communicate what they want to say without thinking all the time, ooh, is that tense correct? Is this preposition correct? The only time we would really jump in is if there's a misunderstanding. For example, this might sound a funny sentence, but I hear it quite often. I have to speak purposely wrongly here, so I have to think about what I'm going to say. I went to a meeting tomorrow. Okay, sounds strange, but I hear it quite often. I usually ask them if they're a time traveler, just to inject some humor into the lesson. But of course, what's more important than grammatical accuracy is vocab and self-confidence. If you haven't got the vocab, you can't communicate. It's as simple as that. And if you're scared, you're not going to communicate very well. So the job of the trainer is to really put everybody at ease, praise them. You can't overpraise people. Tell people they're doing a wonderful job, and don't jump down on every single mistake. Lots of green ticks rather than lots of red ticks. And I find it's a wonderful way of getting the best out of people, and they want to come back the next week, which is very good. So yeah, praise people. Of course, praise is good. I mean, praise is important because people think, yeah, I can do it. And they might think back at their school days when their work was covered in red crosses and they had the feeling, oh, I can't do it, I can't do it. And then as a trainer, you say, of course you can do it. So it doesn't matter if your grammar's not 100% correct. You can do it. You can pick up the telephone and people can understand you. And giving people the feeling mistakes are okay. Don't overthink the language. And when you're having oral communication, you haven't got time to think anyway. I always say to people, the first thing which comes into your head is often correct. So just do it. And if people don't understand you, hey, they're going to ask you. And that's absolutely fine. And just try another way of doing it. And you will find that once you have relaxed and you've had a little bit of experience as a second language speaker, everything becomes easier and confidence levels rise immediately. The companies are happy because their staff are selling their products better and people come to me and want more. So it's a win-win situation, I would say. Coming, I would say, now into the second half. At the end, we'll open for questions, if that's okay for you. But coming to the next part now is we're all online. Some people from Dubai, Paddy, I don't know where you are, maybe in the Oman, I'm not sure. India, I'm from Germany. 1.5 years ago, this wouldn't have been as possible. Oh, I was correct, Paddy, Omania. This wouldn't have been as possible as it is today. It was done on a limited way. People privately used Skype. People used WhatsApp video call. But it wasn't really a natural means of communication between companies. I know somebody in Germany who flew to Brazil, which is about a 10-hour flight, for a meeting which lasted about 45 minutes, stayed the night, and flew back. Now, I think if you suggested to somebody today, after the last 1.5 years, they would probably say, "No, we don't need to do that anymore." That's absolutely fine. And I even work in companies where people between the floors use Zoom or Teams or WebEx to communicate with each other instead of walking around the building, which partly due to pandemic rules as well. Our world has changed in the last 1.5 years completely. So one of the questions which we may want to answer today, can learning a language, English, on an online video platform like Zoom really be effective? My answer to that, yes, 100%. Definitely. I've got zero doubt about that now after 1.5 years of experience. I mean, we're here with Brainciti. This is education. There are entrepreneurs here. We have to be open for change. We have to be. We can't just sit there and say, but we always did it like that. The first thing which I had to overcome when I entered I call this my spaceship. You can't see I've got 3 monitors and 4 cameras and 3 microphones on this side. It looks like a spaceship. And when I joined my Starship Enterprise in March last year, thinking I would be here for 1 month, wrong. 1.5 years later, I'm still sitting in my spaceship, flying around the world. The first thing we had to overcome was to convince the companies to come on board. The first thing they did in the pandemic was cancel English training. Everything cancelled from one day to the next. No business. So what does Nick do and everybody else? We buy lots of screens and microphones and cameras and start calling the companies and say, hey, let's join on Zoom and Skype and WebEx and Teams, whatever you've got, we'll do it. We were desperate to make our companies work. We were all, like the entertainment industry and hotel industry, facing complete ruin in this segment of business. So are you going to sit there or are you going to stand there and jump up and do something about it? What did I hear from customers? Oh, I need personal contact. You can't learn English in front of a computer screen. But we've always done it like this. Oh, no, that won't work. Hey, come on, everybody. We're entrepreneurs. We're business people. Of course, there are solutions to things. After a little bit of pushing and shoving and say, come on, we got it going. And within, I would say, 6 weeks, we got all of our customers back again. Now, 1.5 years later, I would say I've got about 1/3 more business than I had before. So it obviously works. But for the people who have doubts, can you learn English like this on a video screen? Well, look, I'm not so different whether I'm on a screen or if I'm in person in the office. I think we ought to have a look at the list of disadvantages of online learning or video platform learning, I would say. I'm not talking about e-learning. I'm talking about video conference learning. Let's look at the disadvantages and advantages. I spent a lot of time thinking about this, and my disadvantage list is extremely short and my advantage list is extremely long. And I really had to think about the disadvantages, I have to say. So what are the disadvantages of learning English here like this? Number 1, your technology doesn't work. You haven't got a camera. Your internet connection is not very good. That's the biggest problem. Hey, that can be solved. That's not the end of the world. People who work in an open plan office, I get that. I can get that somebody doesn't really like sitting there having an English lesson with workers around them. They're in conjunction with the company, another solution would have to be found that during that time they could actually go maybe to another office or a conference room. Open plan offices, people don't like it. Full day seminars on Zoom or WebEx. I'm lucky, my lessons are generally 60 minutes to 90 minutes, some of them 3 hours, no longer. A whole day seminar, I would imagine, is very hard work and difficult to get people's concentration levels going. So the length of the seminar is critical. And the last thing on my list, and I really had to dig here, you can't do company tours until we have virtual reality and we can walk around. So that is not a question of if, it's a question of when. And I rather hope the pandemic will be over by then. But I want to stay in online learning. I don't want to go to customers all the time again and waste 6 or 8 hours a week driving around. So Nick Ponter's advantage list. Okay, from my experience of a year and a half, what have I learned? Number one, the concentration levels of people online like this is much higher than it is in the training room. In the training room, they chit-chat left to right, which is fine. That's being social and that's absolutely fine. But when you've got a 90-minute English lesson and you lose maybe 10, 15 minutes because everybody's chit-chatting and you've got to get some sort of control in the room, that doesn't happen online. Look at today. Nobody's saying anything. Either you're all asleep or you are fixed to every single word I'm saying. And this is what happens in an online lesson. There's 100% concentration. I think it's great. People are generally punctual. In a company, oh, I've got to go and do this, I've got to go and do that. The people who are at home doing home office or mobile office, they're already there and they just have to click. And I find the punctuality in lessons is much higher, meaning, again, you lose less time. People aren't distracted. People are only looking there. They're not there. They're not there. They're not talking to the person next to you. So it's really is a much more concentrated and focused effort. It's easier for me as a trainer to focus on individual people. I can see everybody's names there, absolutely everyone. I could say to Nias, "Hi Nias, how are you doing?" And I could focus straight on Nias and engage him immediately. In a training room, depending on the size of the group, people hide behind people if they don't want to be spoken to. You can't hide here. There are no hiding places unless you give yourself a false name and a false picture, which people generally don't do. So you can't hide. You're all my targets. Dialogue. Okay, are we going to put this in the disadvantage or the advantage column? If you're in a training room and people are talking between people cross over, yeah, that's natural communication. But I'm a trainer and I'm wanting to get specific things out of people. So you can have much more focused dialogue. Yes, I admit you lose some natural element of conversation because really only one person can speak at a time. But that can be to a disadvantage, to an advantage as well. What else do I like? I'm going to use the chat function. Somebody makes a mistake and you put straight in the correct word. You don't even have to interrupt them. You can carry on typing and speaking. And people who are used to the way I work, I say the chat board is my whiteboard. And if somebody makes a mistake, I just type in there and you can see everybody's eyes like, yep, okay, fine, carry on. There's no more of standing up against the whiteboard and writing things down. It's quicker, it's more efficient, it's much better. My opinion anyway. Breakout rooms. Breakout rooms are ideal if you've got a larger group and you want to put them into little rooms to discuss things and come back together. If you're in one training room, it's more difficult because you have to send them out into different rooms. You're wasting time. In the old days, when people would come into training rooms, they would come with a pen and a notepad. Great, and write everything down. Today, obviously, we're all online, so obviously everybody has a computer. And what have people got on their computers? Well, they have the internet, they have pictures, they got technical drawings, they got emails. Their work is at their fingertips. And with screen sharing, it is immediately possible to share data. And for example, the presentation which we had at the beginning, it's much, much quicker and more effective. And when we come to storytelling, people can say, oh, I had an email for a customer. Can I share it on screen? And we go through it. This is our daily work. And it's much, much easier now with these technical tools which are available for us. We can use trainers from all over the world. In the past, I had to say, oh, there's a trainer. No, she lives 30 minutes away. No, it's too far. I can't use that trainer. And oh, no, they wanted at 8 o'clock in the morning. I need 40 minutes to drive there. That's not going to work. Now, it doesn't matter where the trainers are. It's completely irrelevant. We have a trainer in Spain. I teach on Sunday afternoon to somebody in Saudi Arabia now. It's much, much better. The world has opened up. So anybody from any location can join. And as everybody's talking about the environment today, let's not forget that point. It's good for the environment. So we don't have to fly and drive anywhere. The last time I filled up my car was in August. And I think that's really, really, really cool. So, ladies and gentlemen, I've spoken for about 40 minutes, I think, just under actually, on what work I do in a company, or we do, what is the world of a trainer, and what would you expect as a company from business English training in the corporate environment? I think now at this stage, we would normally go into questions and answers. If anybody's got anything for me, please. I would be more than delighted to answer any questions. My details, well, this is my author website, but I will type. See, this is why I like online learning, because you can put it straight in there. My website and my email address are in the chat. But if anybody's got any questions at all about English learning and not only in the corporate environment, but generally, please shout out or type something in the chat. Open to Q&A. This is like asking an open question at the end of a lesson.
I don't have a question, but I can just want to share some feeling of mine.
Yes, please.
Yeah. What I wanted to say is, I can consider what you have presented as your business language, teaching and other things online. It is not limited to that. You are taking that as, I can take that as that you have just presented a case study. See, every domain of technology or every domain of business or every domain has got different language. Doctor's language is different, engineer's language is different. Because there is a specific English words or whatever way it is. I mean, in any language for that matter. So this platform, as you brought it out online, this one, whatever the advantage you are saying, all those advantages can be taken for any of these domains. Even it is a corporate training in form of technology, or it is a form of the business, or just is a communication skills or soft skills and other things. It can be done both ways. And today, I mean, it is also now possible, because normally the theory and practice have to go both of in a professional domain. This also can be demonstrated. A lot of tools are now available. So it can be very effective. And what great saving you are having is that your travel time, energy time, all those are saved. And I fully agree with you. One side, people do have this tendency that they will put this both on the mute, and a video is off, and also it is muted, and they will be doing something else. But when you are going to point as a trainer that by name, seeing the name and other thing, asking question and making it interactive, it is not that easy to run away from this one. So definitely it gives a lot of focus and this one. So it is very advantageous. So I think during the COVID period, definitely this is a great boon it has come, that the use of technology for training. Whether it's a English training for the business, or it is a technology training, or it is anything, any domain, whatever we consider, it is possible. Thank you very much.
Thank you as well for your comments.
I supplement that.
Very valuable comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Bhatiaji. And I think Paddy wants to say something. Paddy, please unmute yourself and ask.
Thank you very much. I wish I had my camera. I just haven't completely set up my office since I got back from Dubai last night. There's two comments. First of all, thank you very much for, I think, a really informative and positive presentation this evening. I agree. I agree. I agree. I agree. I have two comments that I want to make. First of all, you know, I'm glad that the world has caught up to the online coaching. I was teaching business and international communication in New York City when my dear mom in the west coast of Canada was hit by a car, and I had to leave the best work I'd ever had in my life. And I said, well, I'm going to do it on Skype. This was late 2008, and everybody said, you're nuts. No one will do it. And I said, why would a guy fly all the way to New York and pay all that money when he can stay in his home office and talk to the same coach? So I was able to get into 95 countries before the pandemic. So I believe firmly in online coaching, teaching, etc. And I love the comment about grammar. And you know what I've learned? And, you know, I work with so many people from around the world. And I don't teach English that much, but I work with a lot of clients who have to do presentations. So here I am now in the Middle East. And I know from when I wrote my accent reduction program, that English is not considered a singular language anymore. It's now called a pluralized language, and it's called World Englishes, meaning that when I'm here in the Arab world or speaking with Indians, and like, for example, they use the present progressive tense constantly when they should, right? I'm having 2 children instead of I have 2 children. Or the Arabic way of asking a question, of why you did that, instead of why did you do that? It's just that inversion, right? And so I've come to accept, as long as you're understood, you're good to go. Now, your examples of grammar corrections have to be done, because if the tense is completely wingy, they gotta be understood, and we can't let them go out there and get embarrassed. But I find, you know, it's the grammar thing we really have to change, we native speakers. First of all, a lot of us don't have great grammar. I mean, I find my American colleagues are the most critical of non-native speakers, and yet Americans have terrible. They just don't have good grammar anymore, right? So I just find that, you know, I let people now speak the way they want to be, the way they speak, so long as they're understood, unless the executives, for example, are giving a presentation to an international audience.
Yeah.
And then I don't want the Americans to make fun of them. So then I make sure that they're using American or standard grammar. But I think what you're saying is absolutely true. And I just loved your presentation, and I'm really happy that I had a cancellation at the last minute and was able to in this evening. So thanks a lot. Those are just my 2 comments that I wanted to.
I'm delighted you joined, Paddy. I'm grateful for your cancellation that you were here, and thank you very much for your comments and confirming it from another trainer. Unfortunately, I have to say, there are a lot of trainers in Germany who have a completely different opinion, and they teach English in companies like linguistics. And it's always like a battle between, like, on the dark side and the Republic in Star Wars, between should you teach grammar or not. I personally sit well into the not anti-grammar, but definitely in the practical area.
Yeah, it's the communicative pedagogy. That's what we all need to follow now, just the way we were taught our mother tongue.
Yes.
Right? You learn by listening, you learn by practicing. Every once in a while, if you're way off base, someone will say, I don't know what you're talking about, and they'll fix it. But really, the object of the game is to be understood, and that's what we communicate for. So, you know, I'm with you on that. They're not, if they want to take linguistics, they'll join a linguistics class at the university.
Exactly, yes.
Thank you. Okay, I'll be quiet. Thank you. I'm waving.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Thank you,
I
Paddy.
also want to say one thing. This training online can definitely be made very effective with the concept what we have to, it can be made a learner-centric, and it can be made interesting. Knowing the audience, knowing that this one, we can have a short breaks in between to better for that, you know, to come together and everything, maybe in some games or something, jokes, this and that. It can be made very interesting. And then definitely much better results can come instead of having so the real physical meeting also, because what advantages you get at the same time can be definitely used for these purposes, make it learner-centric and make it more so-called interactive.
Yes.
Asking the questions or trying to say, okay, this is the portion anyone wants to explain this and that. I mean, it is very easy to do it. There's no doubt about it. So if that is done, that automatically there won't be any shortcoming, whether it is online or whether it is physical. And another important thing which you brought, it is a timed. And lesson should not be too long that it becomes boring and nothing, because there is a inherent so-called person can only listen for 50 minutes or 55 minutes concentrate. So they need a break and everything. So if the course and the training is designed that way, automatically things will be much more.
I agree. And I'm not a university lecturer, so I don't have to sit here for 1 hour and lecture about the subject.
It is never they do it. That's why they limit it to 55 minutes or 45 minutes and 10 minutes for the discussion, and then they take a 5-10 minutes and other things. Whole timetables, whole syllabus, it is made always like that in the university.
Yeah, yeah. And of course, you don't learn a language just by listening to somebody speaking. You have been given the opportunity to speak it yourself and make mistakes, which is all absolutely fine.
Yeah, here it is. It can be made much more interactive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's another question. If I can, I'm going to try and pronounce your name. Ooh,
Shubhashish.
I was going to try it myself. I could put my glass.
Shubhashish.
Shubhashish. Got it.
Yeah. Great. So it was very, you are a seasoned speaker. Loved it. Very informative and very eloquent, I'll say. And certain things, especially about the grammatical, as one already mentioned, I liked it. It is very much, required in any kind of speaking, public speaking. If you are struck with grammar, you can never speak.
Yep.
You can never speak, right? So you have to absolutely forego, because even in our mother tongue, I'll say, we make several mistakes. Staying in India, whatever is my mother tongue, I don't use grammar into it. And I'm sure if best of the grammar person comes over there and listens to my mother tongue, he will come out with several, mistakes. Second point where I differ, you have emphasized on online speaking and the way online things are developing. Somewhere I am a motivational speaker, and I have not given as much speeches as you might have, and that too all over the world. I have not given, honestly speaking. But I still feel the few that I have given, body language is very important in motivational speaking. I miss it in the online.
Yeah.
Because until and unless that agitation, that aggressiveness, that commotion, you are able to sit on the stage, and you are able to take each and every eye focused towards you, I will say you are not successful speaker.
Yeah.
So that particular thing I miss in online. I do not know you'll agree to or not, but I was definitely focusing you that you win.
Yeah, I completely agree. When I gave my first ever book reading, it was the largest ever book reading. I get 75 people were standing. It was just before the pandemic, and I had 75 people standing in front of me. And I've given talks and presentations before, but this was new. This was a book reading. This was a different chapter in my life. I was nervous, and I didn't really relax until 10 minutes into it. Then I relaxed, and what you said, giving people eye-to-eye contact and things. Since then, I've been doing readings, I would say 2 a week around the world. For me, sometimes it's just looking at a screen. I did a reading on Monday. Nobody had a camera on. And it was a completely different feeling speaking to a blank screen than standing up in front of 75 people. So, yes, I completely agree with you there. You can't replicate everything online.
Correct. Right.
Absolutely right, Subhashish ji. And I think Laurent wants to say something. He has raised his hand. Please, Mr. Laurent.
Yes, thank you, and fantastic speech. Nick, as you know me in the Econnect, I'm a content and copywriter. And I have to say, grammar is a challenge. I have my wife always taking the stick and beating my fingers, saying, no, grammar, grammar. But I am more and more influenced by my audience. For example, I was very annoyed in most of the material that my client was giving me, that the way they were writing, they omitted the article, the and so on.
Yeah.
And since I'm currently learning Hindi, I learned that in Hindi, the article does not exist. So it's led me to compromise to the pure English grammar and to adapt. At the end of the day, when we produce a content, we want to make sure that the presenter is at ease with what we produce. And forcing him to use the article, whether or not the audience is Indian or international, I think, like you are saying, being nervous, we have to produce as a content provider. We must be able to produce a content environment that makes the speaker comfortable. And yes, compromise on the grammar. At the end of the day, I still want to improve myself, being able to use a good grammar, but it's what I am facing on. The more I produce content to this client, the more I slide to his side of writing my content for him, or presenting my content for him. So what do we need to do? As you mentioned, it's a fight between the dark side and the good republic. But at the end of the day, where to find the right balance?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And of course, the main focus of my talk today was second language learners. And if you don't use an article because you haven't got it in your culture, to try to beat that into people is nearly impossible. And then they will clam up and they won't speak. And it's, as Paddy said as well, you've got to be free. And I think if you're giving a presentation and you make some grammatical mistakes, nobody's going to laugh at you. Hey, they're happy that you're standing up there doing it in their language.
Yes, and my challenge is I am also a second speaker working for second speakers. So there it is.
Well, if you look in Germany, we have three forms of the: der, die, and das. We have neutral, feminine, and masculine. And it changes all the time for different reasons. Oh. So I'm a second German speaker, and it's difficult. I'm glad I don't have to do presentations in German because my grammar wouldn't be perfect, but nobody laughs at me. Everybody's happy that I do it. So, Laurent, thank you very much for your kind comments and very valuable feedback.
Thank you.
There's a question or a comment in the chat I've just seen from, if I pronounce that, Rohini, is that correct?
Yeah.
Liked the attitude of being adaptable to the online training over traditional face-to-face training. Yeah, Rohini, that was the big challenge at the beginning, was convincing people just because we've done it like that in the past doesn't mean to say we can't change. And Germans, I have to say, are very famous for not wanting change, I have to say. So it was a bit of a challenge at the beginning, but we got there. And now we're getting inquiries from all over Germany. So, hi, Rohini. So, yeah, very, very nice comment. And I'm absolutely, really.
Thank you so much, Nick.
You're welcome. This is actually, online training is part of my escape plan, because I've had a dream for many years of traveling Southeast Asia with a rucksack on my back for 3 to 4 months. As a trainer driving to customers, I've never been able to do it, but now the opportunity is there. If I take my laptop with me and I spend 2 months in India, a month in Thailand and a month in Cambodia, that's my dream. Now I can do it and work from anywhere I like.
Wow, such a beautiful way to look at it.
Yep.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you as well.
Yeah, definitely, Rohini. Actually, nowadays I'm seeing kids working from home. They are going on a holiday and sitting there doing their work. So that is what this pandemic has taught us. And I think that is a That is good also, and for public speakers who enjoy eye-to-eye contact with people in front of them, it may be something to change their mindset for this kind of thing. But as far as this business English is concerned, like what Nick is master of, I would say that as being a technical person, we normally go with the flow. There is absolutely no barrier of grammar, although we have learned lots of grammar. But when you have to explain the things in business and something technically, so I think there is absolutely no use of much grammatical things. So we need to explain the things. So those are to be done in a pretty different manner. So sometimes we don't use any grammar at all. So that is what I think business English is all about. And in India, English is our mother language is Hindi, but English is, I think, for all of us all over India, English is the first language.
Yeah.
So we are taught with lots of grammar, but ultimately, I don't think we are using much of the grammar in our writings.
Yeah. Well, I think when it comes to grammar, there's one side which I never touched on today, but I believe there's a certain amount of snobbery when it comes with language. That if you've got somebody who doesn't speak, for example, English very well, and they're not a native English speaker, some people might have the tendency of looking down at them. Or if their pronunciation is not very good, you don't speak English like an Englishman. I mean, I really don't like that attitude at all. And I was actually asked a question by a gentleman from India a few weeks ago that, do I have to speak English like an Englishman? And I said, no, you've got your accent. It's a lovely accent and you can't change who you are. You are Indian. You have an Indian accent. Accept it. When I speak German with an English accent. You can't change who you are. And that's why I always say I'm not trying to turn people into native speakers. And that would be impossible.
That's absolutely right, Nick, because your accent will always remain the same. So if you want to modify that will absolutely make you ridiculous in somebody else's eyes.
Yeah.
So you should stick to your own speaking skills and your own personal touch, because in India we have got a different English speaking pattern as you are talking to us. So if some Englishman is there, so their speaking is quite different, I would say.
Yeah. We got another couple of comments in the chat. One of them is Abassi. Abassi, I put my email address in the chat. Why not email me at the end, and then we can get into a personal conversation about that? Is that okay?
Yeah, and then there is Mr. Madhav Kulkarni, how to forget our own working language in conversing office English. So Nick, your take now.
Madhav, is that correct? Have I said that correct? Madhav?
Madhav.
Where's Madhav here? Is he on camera? No, bottom left. What do you exactly mean by forgetting our working language in conversing office English? Do you mean that you don't have the English vocabulary for business? I'm not quite sure I understand your question.
So Madhav, please unmute yourself and speak out. I think
I'll tell you, probably what Madhav wants to explain is that generally we have a tendency to translate our own mother tongue into English.
Okay.
Is it correct, or should we follow? We should think in English and then speak in English.
Okay. If that is the question, thank you. I think that's a very difficult question to answer because it depends on what language level you're at. If you're at a lower language level, I think you're more likely to copy directly from your own language, including your syntax and certain elements, and do it directly into English if that's the target language. Once you become more proficient in a language and you've had more exposure with communicating in the language, then hopefully that will be a natural progression which happens over time, that you will slowly, I wouldn't say you don't forget your own language, but for example, when I speak German, I can speak German like this as I'm speaking English, and I don't have to think first, oh, what do I want to say in English, then translate it into German. At the beginning, yes, but not now. I can just speak without thinking. But it's a progression which takes some years.
Yes, agree with you. When I was working in the UK, it was, I think for the first year and a half, it was my challenge, thinking in French and translating in English. I went and take some courses, and my teacher told me, you don't have any vocabulary problem. I'm going to teach you how to think in English. Now, the problem is when I go back to France, I'm speaking French, thinking in English now, and I need at least 3 to 5 days to, reset my brain to the French way of thinking. If I'm to comment about what Madame was saying, I believe whatever we are doing, we are also polluted about our environment and trying to let that go into the flow of our conversations. I've been in the IT industry, and talking IT to non-IT people is always a challenge. And at the end of the day, the grammar and the vocabulary is very difficult to lower down to the level of the audience. And I believe the negative aspect of online, because is remove so many barriers, we tend to keep the jargon alive, and sometimes we are missing the audience. Whereas presenting in front of an audience, when we have the eye contact, we know automatically that, oh, we lost a couple of people, and we can react to regain them by basically rephrasing, and that's it. Trying to explain blockchain to my mother, you see, that's the kind of things that we are facing. And now with online presentations, we tend to forget about that.
Yeah. Thank you, Laurent. Rajiv, your hands up.
Yeah, Paddy wants to say something. You have raised your hand.
Just very, very briefly on the subject of accent. Accent is the soul of how we speak any language. Accent is not the problem. Problem is when we don't speak in the rhythm patterns. It's a matter of the music of the. So with clients, especially from Sri Lanka, whose language must be very, very fast, because they don't have the pausing rhythms. The easiest thing to do is just to pause using what we call thought groups. And once you do that pause, everybody knows, they begin to feel the rhythmic pattern of the English language. So I always say accent is not the problem. You don't want to get rid of your accent because you don't want to take away the soul of who you are and the soul of your mother tongue. But it's important that you speak in such a way that people can hear what you're saying and follow. So accent's not the problem. It's a rhythm problem.
Yeah.
Very simple to fix.
Completely agree with you, Paddy, and I do remember listening to Margaret Thatcher. She was a champion of the pause and the way she was talking. Yes, she make it very posh, but posing, she was very good at it.
Okay, Paddy, thank you very much for that valuable comment. That was very, very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Before we conclude, I just have one formality and then we can get back to our task. Rajiv ji, if you can just go ahead, I'll just share the screen.
Yeah, please share the screen. Nick, this is a token of appreciation from our organization Brainciti, and please share the certificate, Naina.
Yeah, just a second. One moment. My machine just gets hung when I open the sheet.
Okay. So on behalf of the entire team from Brainciti, I would like to thank you for your valuable time. And I thank all the participants also for such an interactive session we had today. So we'll be sending you that certificate on mail. I think if she's able to show it here, that will be great. Yeah, it's here. So this is your certificate for joining us on 100 Days, 100 Speakers Summit. And it was really nice session, a very interactive, very informative. And I would like to thank you once again for this wonderful session. So we'll close the live now on YouTube, and we can have some interaction more if anybody wants.
And from my side, thank you very much for asking me to speak and being given the opportunity. It was a real pleasure to be here, and for all of your kind comments, and especially the interaction with everybody, and for everybody for turning up. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.